This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome in, everybody, to this week's edition of the DocNJock Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, Adam the Jock Strozinski. On today's show, this AEW top guy confirms he's going to be sidelined for a while. A new Bloodline member possibly joining WWE. And WWE could be adding another partner very, very soon, as well as an AEW star's contract ending. And he's headed somewhere. Where? We're going to discuss it, but it could be very, very soon. Also, big news coming out of WWE, and there's a star leaving and could be going someplace else, or it could be part of a storyline. We're going to cover all of that. We also have Clash at the Castle. We've got to give our predictions, and then we're going to talk a little bit about AEW later on in the show, so you're going to want to stick around for that. But helping me sort through all the madness, all the mayhem, he is the armory at the DSP Castle. He's the one. He's the only. He is the Doc, John Macaroon. What's up, cuz?
You know, people always say, who's got it better than DocNJock? Well, we always say nobody. But this week, one individual had it better than DocNJock. Claps for Dominic Mysterio. When he looks at the sheet and he goes backstage and he's like, Liv Morgan's going to jump off the stage and she's going to ride me. He must have been like, I got the best job in the world. And not only did he get to spend a year basically flirting with Rhea Ripley, now he gets to flirt with Liv Morgan, and it was timed perfectly because you could mess that up really in a bunch of different ways, but she seemed to land like she knew what she was doing. So Raw and Dynamite and everything that went on, even NXT was good this week, and I just think that a lot of interesting stuff has taken place ahead of Clash at the Castle, which is going to take place just a little bit later on this afternoon.
Yeah, a ton of good stuff's taking place with WWE, and you're right. How fortunate and how awesome would it be to be Dominic Mysterio right now? Look, I don't care what you think. Liv Morgan's very attractive. Rhea Ripley, very attractive. And this man gets to go ahead and live out wildest fantasies of other men. So good for him. The Dominic Mysterio Liv Morgan storyline is incredibly interesting, and look, I'm excited for it. I'm excited for when Rhea comes back. I want to know where they're going with it. I do want to touch on this real quick. I find it interesting because Finn Balor's kind of been on the periphery of this entire thing with Liv Morgan and Dominic Mysterio. He was coming out of a room once where Liv Morgan was supposed to be at. This week, her hotel room key was left on the table, and Dominic told everybody about it. Finn Balor picks it up, puts it in his coat pocket. So I'm wondering how this is going to work out. I'm wondering what's happening here. I'm wondering if Finn Balor is going to be the guy who really drives that nail in the heart of the Judgment Day and really breaks it apart. Or maybe he's the guy who pulls it all together and brings Liv Morgan in and kicks Rhea Ripley out. What are your thoughts on Finn Balor being a key cog in this storyline with Liv Morgan, and Dominic Mysterio is more of kind of the smokescreen?
Yeah, it's interesting because you've recognized that Finn Balor has been kind of, really is a key MVP caliber performer. Yeah, he's kind of now been kind of relegated to like third most important in the group. So with Finn Balor, I just think that over the next few months, he's got to kind of reestablish himself as a force. I know that Damian Priest is such a monster, and now Dominic Mysterio has the lineage, but you can't sleep on Finn Balor. And I hope that, and the stuff that they give him is a little bit more interesting. You are starting to see him kind of take force a little bit, starting to get more reactionary to the things going on. But at the same token, he's taken a lot of pins and kind of has fallen from upper tier guy to kind of firmly in the mid card, and doesn't feel like that's the right spot. But I do think that this angle now with Liv and kind of him being the enforcer kind of and kind of being one of the glue guys will take him to another spot. But you got to give him some intriguing matches as well. You got to have some, him with JD, him with Dom, kind of always kind of feeling like he's in the background. I just kind of feel like Finn Balor needs a primetime program for him established and get him back to where he needs to go. Maybe it's going to probably be, I think if if it works out down the road in a few months, I think a perfect feud would be Finn Balor and Sami Zayn. Be absolutely flawless outside the ring and in the ring.
You know what? I think that could be really, really interesting, but I think you're right. This could be the storyline that really helps catapult Finn Balor back to that either that upper mid card or that main event status. It really kind of helps get him out of the shadow. Maybe helps break him out or breaks him forward in the Judgment Day or from the Judgment Day. So it'll be interesting to kind of see what happens there. Speaking of interesting, we had some news that kind of broke. It was late. I think it was late Saturday night. We had already recorded our show last week, and it was due to come out, so we couldn't go back and do any other edits for it. But we got word that Ricochet told WWE that he's not signing a contract extension and will be leaving WWE. Then the reports come out and basically state that WWE is going to be writing him off TV for a long time. You fast forward to Monday, he gets body slammed through the windshield of a car by Braun Breaker, essentially writing him off TV for a very long time. Now, as we kind of worked our way through the week, different things started to kind of come out, and it was basically like, look, everything they said was true. This is what's going to happen. He's going to go somewhere else. So everybody starts speculating. Is it AEW? Is it New Japan? Is it CMLL? Is it AAA? Is he going to do some other stuff on the indies? Maybe it's TNA. Where is he going? And then as we got closer to Friday, word started to kind of come out like maybe this is just a bit of I guess, a smokescreen, again, for lack of a better term. This is just them kind of maybe pulling the wool over everybody's eyes. The expectation is maybe Ricochet comes back to WWE. Maybe he signs that contract extension. If you listen to Dave Meltzer after that Monday Night Raw, he basically said it. The way that they set this up, they set it up for him to come back with a monster return. This is one of those types of angles where they write you off TV for a little bit, you go away for a month or two, and then you come back and they bring you back kind of repackaged and you're bigger than ever. Where does the doc see Ricochet going? Does Ricochet go someplace else? Again, this is the year of the contract. There are multiple contracts coming due either right now all the way through, I think, the end of September, October. You got to remember, 5 years ago, AEW formed and started signing everybody. WWE matched what AEW was doing and started signing everybody else to 5-year contracts. So right now, 2024, a lot of contracts are coming due. There's a lot of free agent talent out there. And look, Ricochet is a guy who WWE, I feel like, has completely misused. This is a guy who was huge on the indies. This was a guy who was huge on Lucha Underground. This is a guy who has an all-time classic match taking on Will Ospreay. This is a guy who is absolutely massive in the wrestling world, and he goes to WWE and he feels like he's a lower end mid card guy. And if he does get a little bit of screen time, he's usually getting beat, or he's just kind of propped up in this weird mid card status. He doesn't really ever seem like he's a main event wrestler on WWE. Do you think Ricochet goes someplace else and cashes in and becomes the star that he wants to be? Or do you think Ricochet comes back to WWE and it was all, like I said, a giant smokescreen, and this is going to be a fantastic story between him and Braun Breaker when he comes back?
Yeah, it's crazy to think about. Ricochet, I think, really has been put in an interesting position, because I think that the opportunity for him, even though, look, if you're Ricochet and you're going to be put in a program potentially with Braun Breaker, do you think you're going to go over? I mean, your ass is going to get destroyed. And I do think that at first, when you first saw Braun Breaker destroy Ricochet, I thought it was disappointing because everybody already knew. They said, okay, now with the contract situation being talked about, Ricochet's getting written off television. I thought, man, okay, so you just wait for it, and then you can kind of see when it was going to go down after his involvement in Breaker's match against Dragunov. And so you look at it and you say, okay, but then you have the interesting part that I guess people were debating online is, why would you have Samantha Irvin be part of it? Why would you have her name be associated with it? You could just have him get destroyed, move on, and ignore him. So there is...
And real quick, with Samantha Irvin, it's already been discussed. She's not going anywhere. She's staying with WWE. She's not going anywhere.
Right, but the situation is, why would you involve her in this storyline? Because there's no payoff if Ricochet leaves. So people are saying, well, maybe that is a sign or a clue that by involving Samantha in the ambulance ride, that maybe that's a hint that he stays. But I look at it like this. It's actually a beautiful way of writing where you can go both ways, where you can still negotiate with Ricochet and say, okay, if you come back, you're in this feud with Braun. This is what you're going to be. You're going to get elevated, but you're going to get your ass beat. You're not going over because Braun Breaker is the man. He looks the part, is the part, and you can see it. You can just see when he's there, he looks the part. And we'll talk about kind of a bad decision. I think Triple H, one of the first bad decisions he made with Braun Breaker on Raw. But I think that best thing for Ricochet, go to AEW, feud with Will Ospreay or pair up with Will Ospreay or do what you got to do to get yourself over, more primetime matches. You're 35 years old. You could have a nice 3-year run in AEW and come back a bigger star at 38, just similar to what AJ Styles did. So I think that for Ricochet, a nice break from all the wrestling, get in there where you wrestle once a week, get your name over, and have an opportunity to have some good matches, maybe cash in a little bit because I do think that Tony Khan's dollars would pay Ricochet. I think that at least for Ricochet, you would probably presume that he's got 2 companies offering him some money, and he'll make the best decision for him. But I do think the best decision for him is to go to AEW. Right now, literally the last thing we see is him on the internet show Speed losing to Andrade. I mean, come on, dude. That's just well beneath him. And basically, after his stuff with Logan Paul, there was nothing relevant for Ricochet other than what you're seeing now in terms of getting destroyed by Braun Breaker. So I do think the best thing for Ricochet, go to AEW, get yourself over, become more of a star, and force the WWE to bring you back in a much different spot.
Yeah, look, I agree with you. I think best spot for him to go would be AEW. And again, it's because he can rekindle that match with Will Ospreay. He can do it on a bigger platform with a larger audience. And he can bounce back and forth to New Japan. He can do stuff in New Japan because they have that partnership. And if I'm Ricochet, my one request would be to more or less split a lot of time between AEW and New Japan. I would love to go to New Japan and do a ton of work there and really help elevate myself and bounce back and forth to AEW. So I agree with you. I think it's one of those things where he could go and really help drive his price up, really help reestablish himself as that superstar wrestler, and really help introduce himself to a whole new set of eyes and get all kinds of people talking about it, because he is fantastic in the ring. The guy does amazing stuff. You go back to I don't know what it was. Might have been Royal Rumble. I'm not sure. There was a spot with Logan Paul a couple of years ago, and it was a botched spot, but it still worked out because him and Logan Paul are such fantastic athletes. They were able to, in midair, control their bodies and make a move happen. Now, look, it didn't go perfect, but to be in that spot and be able to do that just goes to show how talented you are and how athletic you are. So I think he could totally go to AEW, New Japan. If you wanted to go to CMLL or AAA even, or even TNA, he could really cash in and really help elevate his price and his stock. So it'll be interesting to see where he goes and what this storyline actually is, if there is a payoff in WWE, because that payoff may come from AEW or New Japan for that matter. You brought up Braun Breaker because Braun Breaker is the other part of this. He's the other coin, the other part of the coin to this. What was your major misstep with Braun Breaker? What do you think Triple H screwed up here with Braun Breaker?
Yeah, I think that you gave away a pay-per-view match on Raw for free. I think that you have Dragunov, who I think that is an emerging star. He's new, and you have him take a loss to Braun Breaker. I think that match needed a build. I mean, yeah, we all know the NXT feud. We everybody that's a fan of wrestling knows that these two individuals are rivals. And I thought the match in and of itself kind of even didn't deliver. The match itself was kind of a little bit subpar in regards to a Raw match. And I said to myself, wait a minute, why are these guys already matching up against each other? This is something that could have been a build to SummerSlam or had a build where you could have a payoff or something like that. It's kind of like, okay, we're going to have these two guys wrestle. I would say that maybe 1 or 2 more weeks of Braun just destroying house talent would be just fine. And I just think that this kind of match, I feel like, okay, you're kind of, why am I going to believe in Dragunov now? Why am I going to believe in this character? And Braun Breaker now needs to kind of continue to kind of be built up as this monster, but I don't think that he needed to go over on a guy that's an emerging star. I think that both guys needed to kind of stay away from each other and then rekindle a rivalry at a pay-per-view. I thought that was a situation in which far too soon for a match of that just to kind of be thrown away on a Raw, where the point afterwards, and I know it's quickly, you have Ricochet and everybody can talk about that, but I just don't think that's the situation in which you want to present somebody new from NXT. And that's what's been the biggest thing. And it's little things, death by 1,000 cuts. Most people say that the NXT guys are having a hard time getting over. Well, they have a hard time getting over because there was a growing swell for Dragunov to kind of be somebody, and then you halted it by having them get fed to Braun Breaker. I just think that that's not good for both of them. And I just think that you don't even need to have Braun Breaker out there in a match. He's just backstage lurking, the guy that's just kind of around, and one of the people that pisses him off. Like, it's all jokes and fun until somebody says something that pisses Braun off, and then he goes apeshit and destroys people in the back. So I just thought that was a mistake putting that match on this week.
Yeah, look, I see where you're coming from, and look, Ilya Dragunov and Braun Breaker were both mega stars in NXT. Why would you bring them to the main roster and have them go against each other? That just doesn't seem to make sense because somebody's got to go over. We before about getting over and going over. And in this case, I don't really feel like Ilya Dragunov was able to get himself over at the same time Braun Breaker is going over. So it to me, it didn't necessarily work, didn't necessarily serve the purpose. You could have him go up against just about anybody else and could do the job that you were looking to do here. So I get that you're trying to tell this story. They were trying to tell a story with Ricochet, Dragunov, and Breaker, and trying to weave all these guys in. And I understand that. I get that. But again, you really want to help elevate a young talent like Ilya Dragunov. He's fantastic. The guy's amazing in the ring. Don't really think he necessarily did it in this manner. I don't think it really helped him out. So it's a bit of a flag there. So I'm in total lockstep with you. Before we get to the predictions, anything else from WWE that you wanted to tackle before we get through this card?
I thought that the Clash at the Castle pre-show was very good. You have a lot of people talking about the involvement with TNA, AJ Styles, crowd surfing. You see the crowd surfing of Cody Rhodes. It was great. It was good to see some fun. I just think that Liv Morgan is somebody that can sell matches in an intriguing fashion. I thought that was good. Raw, I just put a note that AOP and the group looks like if we did a stock watch, their group looks irrelevant. And it was really crazy that AOP got that Miz and R-Truth went over in that fashion. I just thought AOP looks like, really, as big of a tag team as they are, they look like enhancement talent. And it's like they're not relevant. It's crazy. So that was my only note besides the stuff that we talked about from Raw.
Real quick before we get into Clash at the Castle, there was a recent interview done with the Undertaker, and it was on the 6 Feet Under. I believe it was a podcast, and he had this to say about Tony Khan, and I wanted to get your take on this. The Undertaker said, "I don't think there's a true leader in W's locker room, and I'm not sure. I have nothing against the man, but I don't know that Tony Khan is the guy to run the company. I mean, his heart's in a good place and he wants to do something, but I just don't know that he has the acumen to run a wrestling company against the juggernaut that is the WWE. But hey, I could be wrong. There was that other time I was wrong, but I hope they get it together and we do have some competition. It's better for the wrestlers, it's better for the audience and the fans." Well, what do you think about the Undertaker's take on Tony Khan and not necessarily having the acumen to run a wrestling company? Because when I hear that and when I read that, I'm more inclined to agree with him. I think Tony Khan is in a great place. And I think Tony Khan could be a very, very good businessman. But I think Tony Khan is sometimes a bit of a mark, and he wants to be so much a part of the process and be so much a part of the everyday. It tends to get away from him a little bit. And when we get to talking about AEW, I'm going to have a bit of a harsh review about Dynamite and about one of the stars that they have that they're paying a ton of money to, because I just don't think it's working out. And I think a lot of this falls on the feet of Tony Khan because I don't think he's a great booker. And I don't think he was brought up in the business, so I don't think he necessarily understands. I think a lot of times it's just throwing matches together and trying to give you a whole lot of everything, and it just doesn't work. It kind of misses with the audience. It's very difficult to do episodic programming every single week and continuing these storylines along and then jumping from one storyline into another storyline. It's very hard to do this. And if you're not brought up in the business and you don't necessarily have that type of a mind for it, I think people can kind of see through that and see some of the flaws. But I wanted to quickly get your take on the Undertaker's assessment of Tony Khan.
Yeah, I just think that clearly booking a show is clearly difficult. It's really tough to map things out and have things make sense. And I think, too, what Undertaker's saying is he disagrees with the philosophy. And Tony Khan has now said it, that I create shows for wrestling freaks. And that's fine, but that's only going to get you 700,000 views every single week after week after week. And eventually it's going to fade off into that because the company is not fresh. And even if you look, I mean, you have Mercedes Moné, Will Ospreay, Okada, Bryan Danielson, Jon Moxley. You got stars, but they're not moving the needle. Why? Because you're just like, okay, this week it's Jon Moxley versus Claudio. This week it's Jon Moxley versus Eddie Kingston. And this week it's Jon Moxley versus Onita. And it's just match after match after match. It don't mean anything. And it's like, okay, I don't have to watch it. It's like, okay, it's a wrestling match. And so you're appealing to one kind of fan, which is the fan that loves wrestling. And it's not as entertaining. It's not as fun. So I just think that basically Tony Khan is cooking with one arm. And it's just like, use the other arm, bro. It's okay. And it's a guy that's cooking with one arm, even though he has two. There's a plethora of wrestling talent that you can find to book shows or be part of the creative process. And I think they need to expand that out to someone maybe a little bit more entertaining, someone that's a little bit more shocking, a little bit more less reliant on WWE's name. So I agree with the Undertaker, but at the same token, it doesn't ring as much because Undertaker's biased. He's pro WWE, been in that company basically for his entire wrestling career outside of a short stint in WCW. So I would not expect anything less from The Undertaker. I think that he's pro WWE all the way. And of course he's going to say that, but it's true. The proof's in the pudding. And if you get a chance to watch the old TNT show, you start to see it where Sammy Guevara's like, dude, I'm hot. I just had a match and you keep me off TV for 3 weeks. Like, how are you building my momentum when you keep me off TV? And you just get a sense of a guy that kind of is a little bit in over his head, but doesn't know it.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I think that's the best way to put it. He's in just a little head and doesn't really realize it. And look, like we said, booking a program, a wrestling show is incredibly difficult. There's a lot of moving parts and a lot of moving pieces. So not really bagging on Tony Khan, just kind of an assessment on where he's at 5 years in with AEW. Let's get into Clash at the Castle real quick. This is a smaller card. This is one of their B pay-per-views. And what we've had thus far with WWE is their B pay-per-views have been A's and A pluses. So I'm expecting a great show. This is going to take place Saturday, 2 p.m. It's going to be another one of those awesome mid-afternoon Saturday pay-per-views. Should be a really, really good time. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4. We've got 5 matches on this card, which seems to be what Triple H likes to do. Give everybody some time. It's going to be about a 2.5, maybe a 3-hour show, and it should really fill in a lot of gaps and give you a really good program. Kicking the whole thing off, we're going to have the WWE Women's Tag Team Championship match between Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill taking on Alba Fire, Isla Dawn, Shayna Baszler, and Zoe Starks. This is going to be a triple threat tag team. Who do you have winning this? Do the champs retain here?
Yeah, I have the champs retaining, but I would not be surprised if you have the champs drop it and maybe start to plant the seeds of a feud with Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill. But I just think this is going to be a chalk pay-per-view, and it's going to be about the wrestling, and it's going to be about maybe telling the next story and evolving the stories that are already there. So I'm curious to see how this match plays out, but I do think that in the end, the smart thing to do would be to keep the belts on Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair.
Yeah, this is a pay-per-view. When you really look at it, you've got quite a few Scottish wrestlers on it, and I don't necessarily see any of them winning. If there was to be a wrestling match where they could win it, it would be this one. It would be Alba Fire and Isla Dawn coming away as the women tag team champs. That being said, I think it might be a little bit too early to break up this tag team between Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill. I know that we want to get to the match between them, and I think we'll get there around SummerSlam, right? I think whether it's right after SummerSlam or heading into SummerSlam, we're going to get there. All that being said, I think we have a couple more weeks with them having the tag belts on themselves, and I think we're going to have to kind of go from there. So I'm going to agree with you. I think it's going to be Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill retaining the belts. and coming away as champs. Now, look, in this match, you could possibly see Sonya Deville get involved. She had been talking to Shayna Baszler and Zoe Starks. Maybe she comes out, costs them, and maybe that's how Alba Fire and Isla Dawn get the win. Just kind of spitballing some ideas here for you, but I'm still going to go with Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill. It's one of those things where I'm like 36% sure that they're winning, and the rest of it could go to the other two teams and split it up evenly if you wanted to. So it's just a little bit more towards the champs retaining. Next, we've got the Intercontinental Championship. We've got Sami Zayn taking on Chad Gable. Rumors are starting to swirl. Chad Gable has signed a huge multi-year extension. Sounds like the extension could be up to 2 years. I haven't been able to confirm anything. That's why it's not going to be in our news and notes. We should have a little bit more clarity next week on what his contract status is. Should Chad Gable beat Sami Zayn at this pay-per-view? What are your thoughts?
No, he's not believable yet. I think the next thing is to have Otis destroy Chad Gable, and you're starting to get the whispers little by little that Otis is not happy. I think the next feud is Chad Gable versus Otis, and that'll be fun to have the heel tactics and then Otis get over because he's a face that's ready for the fans to embrace him. And I think that it's just I don't really like the situation in which Chad Gable is slapping him all the time, and he just then reacts by beating up the opponent of Chad Gable. I'm ready for the turn. I'm ready for the Alpha Academy to break up. Everybody can go their own way, and everybody can kind of reach their own potential instead of be part of this group that's being under the thumb of Chad Gable. So Sami Zayn is going to win, but it's going to be a great match. No doubt about it. Has a chance to steal the show.
Yeah, I'm going to go with you. It's going to be Sami Zayn as well. And right, this could steal the show. It's going to be interesting to see how they book Chad Gable going forward. The big story right now surrounding Chad Gable is his faction and it deteriorating around him. The last pay-per-view, I predicted it to fall apart. It didn't. It could be this pay-per-view where it falls apart, or it could be at SummerSlam. So it's going to be interesting to see how they end up booking this and kind of where we go with it. But I have Sami Zayn winning this and retaining his belt. I'm going to pick for both of us for the next two matches. You got the WWE Women's Championship. You've got Bayley taking on Piper Niven. I think Bayley retains. I don't think you're going to disagree with me on that. I like seeing Piper Niven get a little bit of time. I loved hearing her story. I loved hearing her talk on the mic and address Bayley. I thought that was great. I thought it added a lot to her character, something that we really haven't seen a whole lot of. After that, we're going to have the undisputed WWE champion, Cody Rhodes, taking on AJ Styles in an I Quit match. I think we both got Cody Rhodes winning this. I think this could really help set up an interesting storyline going forward. I think this could be a match that we get again at SummerSlam. Don't be surprised if you have some outside interference from Anderson and Gallows. Don't be surprised if they play a part in this. We kind of laid a little bit of that out last week. If you're interested in it, you can go back and listen to it. But I'm going to believe we both have Cody Rhodes winning this one as well, correct?
Absolutely. No doubt. It's going to be a great match, too. I can't wait to see how the crowd reacts.
Okay, next match is going to be for the World Heavyweight Championship. It's going to be Damian Priest taking on Drew McIntyre. And I'm going to throw out two different ways this can go. And I want to know which one you're kind of going with here, because it feels like it's very early in Damian Priest's title run for him to lose his belt. But it would make all the sense in the world, since Drew McIntyre is in Scotland, since Drew McIntyre is Scottish, and since Drew McIntyre is essentially the country's favorite wrestler, this would make sense to put the belt on him. It would make all the sense in the world for that to happen here. Now, again, Bloodline or the Judgment Day are not allowed at ringside, so there should be no interference on Damian Priest's behalf, right? So I just kind of laid out why Drew McIntyre should win it here. What could happen, though, and what may happen, though, well, actually, let me go into this one real quick. So if Drew McIntyre wins this, I think you have a long-term story that could be built out from this. Drew McIntyre wins this only to face Gunther at SummerSlam, because remember, Gunther won King of the Ring, and by winning King of the Ring, he gets a match at SummerSlam to take on the champion that he chooses. It's going to be Damian. It would be Damian Priest or it'll be Drew McIntyre, whoever has the belt at that time. Gunther could then unseat Drew McIntyre. This could send Drew McIntyre into a bit of a frenzy. Remember, everything with his character thus far has basically pointed to him being a hypocritical wrestler. He has condemned everybody for everything that they've done, and then he's gone ahead and he's done it himself. So This drives Drew McIntyre crazy that he lost his match to Gunther and doesn't feel like Gunther actually earned that match because he won a match that got him the number 1 seed to take him on. So what could Drew McIntyre do? Drew McIntyre could then enter into Money in the Bank, which, remember, that's how he lost his championship. Could then enter into Money in the Bank, win Money in the Bank, and then come back and cash in on whether it be Damian Priest who gets his belt back, whether it's Gunther who's still the champion, or CM Punk because he's supposed to get into a feud with CM Punk. But it would just kind of drive home the hypocritical nature of Drew McIntyre. So Drew McIntyre wins and then loses at SummerSlam only to become more enraged and again going against his original feelings and his original thoughts, and again going full-blown hypocrite and getting into Money in the Bank to win that match to then cash in to get that belt, which is the one issue that he's having currently with Damian Priest, to bring it all back home. Or what we do is, again, early in Damian Priest's run, we have CM Punk interfere in this match and cost Drew McIntyre his opportunity, his title shot. CM Punk runs a little bit of interference, and this is the thing that really helps spark where they're going to go with CM Punk. Now, I don't know what CM Punk's health is, so I don't know the direction that we're going to go in with that. If I knew more about CM Punk's health, I think it would kind of help us in that direction, but I do not know where he's at. I don't know if he's going to be medically cleared anytime soon, but that could be the thing that costs Drew the belt and allows Damian Priest to retain. And this now becomes your storyline as you build towards SummerSlam, Drew McIntyre and CM Punk. Which direction do you see this going? And do we have him becoming a crazy hypocrite down the road to get into Money in the Bank? Or does CM Punk cost Drew McIntyre the chance at the win here, and Damian Priest walks out as your winner?
Yeah, no, it would be shocking if Damian Priest loses the belt, because I think all that build, it would take away from WrestleMania. Man, it's going to be tough, but I do think that the ultimate nuclear heat is CM Punk interfering, where Drew McIntyre is so close, and boom, CM Punk is there to ruin the day again and just builds nuclear heat for that feud, and I think that'll set it over the top for the summer. So there's no chance Drew leaves with the title. Now, your scenario about him winning the Money in the Bank would be great, and he can kind of take his time and cash it in, probably what he deserves. Let Damian Priest have it until WrestleMania. I mean, let Damian Priest win some matches. Let him feud with some people, and then you can have Damian Priest lose in a way similar, which is full circle at WrestleMania 41 to Drew McIntyre, which would be very solid and a nice culmination for the Scotsman. But yeah, CM Punk, it's got to be the summer of Punk and Drew McIntyre with all that footage of why they feuded. It'll be great.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with you. I think it's going to be Damian Priest. We're in lockstep on this entire card. Sometimes these B shows set up like that where it's just don't overthink it, keep it simple, stupid. But I think you're right. The nuclear heat would be CM Punk costing Drew McIntyre. And look, this could be one of those things like Canada was for Bret Hart, right? Where Drew McIntyre is the face in Scotland and CM Punk is the heel in Scotland. But everywhere else, CM Punk is the face and Drew McIntyre is the heel. This could be one of those types of places, one of those types of settings here, as CM Punk costs Drew McIntyre the title and Damian Priest leaves the winner. As far as calling the card goes, I have a 1-point lead on you. If everything holds the way it's going to hold, we'll end up splitting the point and the score won't change. So not too much to really get in there. I do want to touch on AEW, and I do want to get a little bit of your perspective from what we got from Dynamite this week. I felt like Dynamite was an incredibly C show. I don't feel like it did a whole lot. I think at the very end, you got a little bit of a build for the Swerve Will Ospreay match, and I thought that was fun. I thought that was cool. But other than that, I found this to be a pretty lackluster show. There wasn't a whole lot that really held my interest, and I found my interest really waned when Mercedes Moné came on the screen. I have had a hard time getting invested in her character. I've had a hard time getting into what she's doing. I feel like she is the generic version of WWE's Sasha Banks. I don't feel like she evolved her character at all. In my eyes, she took what she did in WWE. She took Sasha Banks. She never added to it when she got let go. She never really did anything special with it. She took it. She kept the same moves when she comes out, which is this weird little open. She does entrance into the ring. She talks the same way with the same cadence. Nothing has changed about her. And I feel like in AEW, there was a bit of a shine when she was in WWE, whether it was the way she was presented or whether it was the way that she was propped up there. There was a bit of a shine. You knew she was a top star. You knew she was big billing. In AEW, I feel like she is incredibly mid-card. I feel like she is honestly, I'm more into Willow Nightingale than I am into Mercedes Moné. Mercedes Moné is making $10 million. That's what her contract is, $10 million a year. That's crazy. And I'm more into Willow Nightingale, who a few years ago was a bit of an indie darling. To me, Mercedes Moné and her contract are nothing but dead weight. Am I off base with that? Am I out of my league here? Am I out of my mind here? Because I'm just not finding anything redeeming about her character, and I'm not finding anything redeeming about this title run. The worst part is we've got Forbidden Door right around the corner, and she's in a match where it's going to be belt for belt, and I see her coming away with the New Japan Strong Women's Championship, which was a belt that she was originally supposed to win, but Willow Nightingale ended up winning because she broke her leg. To me, I don't feel like she needs another belt. I don't feel like I need to see her on my screen. I am not in to this version of Sasha Banks, aka Mercedes Moné. Am I just out of my mind here?
No, I think the only thing that was intriguing was Will Ospreay and MJF. That was about it, if that. So you're absolutely right. It's just a situation in which you see a show that is put together like, okay, here are the matches I want to see, and these guys could have a good match, and that's about it. And there's no flow of like, okay, now you know Will Ospreay, and they have this stare down with Swerve and all that kind of stuff, and you get a chance to see a glimpse of Will Ospreay with the belt, and ooh. But in the end, I think that you need to have intrigue. That's what they're missing, is just intrigue. And they got to find a way. And how do you build intrigue? Well, there's a lot of different ways psychologically. It can be us against the world. It can be somebody that's an underdog that keeps losing. That's the David versus Goliath. You could have somebody that is, stands up to MJF, or you have some suspicion, something that's going on that's questioning, like WWE. They've had this Uncle Howdy thing going on for 3-4 months now, and it's every week. What's this mean? Let's do more with it, some interaction. So AEW is just literally, they're using one tool, and it's the tool of, we have a great match, and watch it. Well, okay, good, but you could double your audience if you had some entertainment. Just add some entertainment, and we'll all be happy.
I agree with you 100%. It is just match after match after match, and there's really no storyline. And I think that's the problem that we're having with AEW as a whole right now. You're not really giving us anything to kind of build off of or really enjoy at this moment in time. Before we get to news and notes, I think we can both agree we're taping this a little bit early, so we're at a little bit of a disadvantage. I'm assuming SmackDown is going to be a fantastic show, and I'm half tempted to give Show of the Week to SmackDown without ever seeing it. But do you want to give the point for Show of the Week to Monday Night Raw, because Dynamite was pretty much a wet diaper?
No, I'm going to give the best Show of the Week, because we didn't talk about it much. I'm going to give it to NXT, and here's why.
Okay.
I'm going to give it to NXT because they found a way, and the reason why is Cody Rhodes wanted to honor his dad. That was the anniversary of his dad's death. That's why he's there. And also, too, he could sell the pay-per-view. And I thought they had the viral moment of the week. And I thought, there was actually a couple moments. I thought that Trick Williams in there was great, and he kind of seeking advice, kind of like some intrigue. I'm curious, Trick, talking to Cody. What's he going to talk to him about? And Trick is like, I'm at the top. And Cody's like, you can always do more. Boom, a little bit of, I think, Cody Trick would be great. And then you have the moment of the night where you have the 3 former AEW stars and Cody. He walks up to him nonchalantly. He's like, seems like you all are in good places right now, to Ethan Page, to Shawn Spears, and to Pillman Jr. And it was great. And I thought that you recognize that NXT has a brand that's doing what they need to do to gain attention, and to add Cody Rhodes to the mix there was great. And I just think that that's the beauty of NXT, is anybody could show up there. And for him to do that, kind of get away from probably his own thoughts, to get in the ring, to honor the NXT people. And then I thought, too, which was kind of cute, giving the dashing Cody Rhodes mask away. That was just icing on the cake. I thought that was great as well, to the lady wrestler that was injured. I just thought, you know what? This is good. this is something that in these 2 hours I thought was compact. So for a week, to me, NXT gets a point.
I'm going to second it, and I agree with you. I think that is a fantastic nomination. I thought NXT was a very good show, so I agree with you. We'll give it to NXT. You ready for some news and notes before we get out of here?
Hit me with this week's professional wrestling news and notes. What made your list?
All right, this AEW top guy confirms he is going to be sidelined for a while. AEW's Dax Harwood of FTR has confirmed that he suffered a serious injury that will see him sidelined for the foreseeable future. Harwood revealed that he injured his back at AEW's Dynasty on April 21st in the AEW World Tag Team Championship Tournament Finals ladder match against the Young Bucks. In a lengthy post, Harwood would discuss the months of pain and trying to tough it out, when in reality he was hiding the injury and needed to be more upfront about what was going on. Harwood would continue explaining how his medical test results forced AEW to take him off the road, and he is being forced to rest in hopes of recovering. Harwood will close by saying, "My number one priority in this profession, obviously I know I get flack for it, is the legacy of FTR, and I never want that to go away. Thank you guys for everything. Thank you to my work, to my bosses, to everyone who didn't give any shits for me lying to them and taking the steps needed that I wouldn't take to take care of my body, because without them, I'm sure the next couple of months, couple of years, I'd be crippled, man, and I can't thank them enough." So Doc Sampson, the medical team, even my boss man, Tony Khan, who had no idea about this. I hope he's okay with this. Thank you for everything, and I hope to see you soon. Top guys out. Dax Harwood ended up having a football-sized hematoma on his spine, just above his pelvis, and it's pretty gnarly. He's been wearing those high-waisted trunks, trying to hide it and trying to work through it, but it's at this moment in time, it's really, really hurting him, and he needs to get some medical attention, needs to be taken off the road and be sidelined for quite a while. Now, a new Bloodline member may be on their way to WWE. Reports from Dave Meltzer and the Wrestling Observer Daily this week stated, "We did get a confirmation from the WWE side that Hikuleo is coming in after what appeared to be a farewell scene in the post-match after he had been pinned at yesterday's Dominion show in Osaka. Hikuleo may be headed to the newest iteration of the Bloodline, as he has deep ties already to the other current on-screen members. His real-life half-brother is Tama Tonga, and he's considered the adopted brother of Tangaloa. WWE reported interest in Hikuleo goes back over a year, but he was finally written out of New Japan at Dominion earlier this week. At this stage, it's unknown whether he'll debut on the main roster as a Bloodline member immediately or start in NXT. Now, on June 11th, WWE filed a trademark application for the mark Tala Tonga. This could be Hikuleo's new on-screen name. After all, Tala, Talla, he is over 6'7", so he's a bit of a tall guy. Get it? We'll see what happens. Tala also is a bit of a reference to his real name. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do with Hikuleo, who's now coming in. WWE could be adding another partner soon. A major partnership between WWE and the Japanese wrestling promotion Pro Wrestling Noah could be set to be announced. Recently, the president of Cyberfight Incorporated announced that they wanted to strengthen relationships with WWE. Cyberfight Inc. is the parent company of the Japanese wrestling promotion Pro Wrestling Noah, DDT Pro Wrestling, and Tokyo Joshi Pro Wrestling. In a tweet from the official Pro Wrestling Noah account, fans of WWE and Noah can expect an announcement soon, stating Noah and WWE will be making a major announcement at Butan event in Yokohama on June 16th. A message from a certain wrestler is also being released. At the time of this writing, there's no further details as to what WWE and Noah's announcement will entail or who the certain wrestler is likely to be. So we're just going to have to kind of wait and see and check it out on Sunday. This star's contract has expired, and he is reportedly on the move. Jeff Hardy is now a free agent and many have wondered what the future may hold for the charismatic enigma. In April, Jeff's brother Matt Hardy left AEW, with the two sides not coming to terms on a new contract. Since then, Matt has joined TNA and has brought his broken character with him. Could Jeff be leaving AEW and joining the Broken Universe? Per PW Insider, Jeff Hardy is expected to make his return to TNA Wrestling this weekend. It could happen as soon as Friday night against All Odds pay-per-view. We're recording this right before the All Odds pay-per-view. Matt Hardy is in the main event against Moose. So remember that. Matt Hardy returned to TNA as the Broken Matt Hardy following his AEW departure and is set to challenge Moose for the TNA World Championship in the main event against All Odds, like I just said. Jeff has not competed since February 14th's AEW Rampage taping, where he faced off with Sammy Guevara in a no disqualification match. In that match, I believe that was the match that Jeff Hardy ended up getting knocked silly, ended up with a really bad concussion, and part of the reason Sammy Guevara hasn't been seen on TV is they took him off TV after that. And that's going to do it for this week's wrestling news and notes. Very big weekend. We've got Clash at the Castle. You've got All Out taking place on Friday night. This is coming out Saturday. So enjoy the wrestling world. We've got a big announcement on the 16th, and it sounds like on June 17th on Monday night, we could be getting the Uncle Howdy 6, the Wyatt 6. We could be getting that debuting finally. So a lot of good stuff going on these next couple of days in the wrestling world.
No doubt. Make sure you follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSJROZ. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast. If you've agreed or disagreed with anything that we've said, hit us up. It's very important that anytime someone messages us, we do like to have debates and enjoy conversation about the world of professional wrestling. If you think that Chad Gable should go over, if you think that the Scottish individuals, the Scottish contingent should do better at Clash of the Castle, let us know. We'll definitely take it into consideration as we watch it. It's going to be a fun pay-per-view as always. Anytime that you have a thought on the world of wrestling, if it applies to the real world of sports or anything like that, let us know. If you're a fan of AEW and you just think that Adam is just a big fat hater, let us know. We'll entertain the idea and debate. Make sure that you hit the like and subscribe button, and anytime you subscribe, then when each new show drops, you'll have it, no doubt about it, within the first, probably, it's so quick nowadays, within the first 5 minutes of us dropping it, it'll be tweeted and it'll find its way all over the internet to everywhere. Google Play, Apple Store, Podomatic, anywhere that you like podcasts, you can find Detroit Sports Podcast. And we have to say this, in the history of Detroit Sports Podcast, we are virus-free. We've never been hacked, and it's been crazy seeing Buster-only major sports networks get hacked online. Look, DocNJock may click some links, but we don't click the bad ones that get us kicked off the air. So you can always find us on Twitter at Detroit Podcast, and you can go right there directly anytime, and you can push the play button, and our content will find you directly. So that's the one thing we've prided ourselves on, is if you like audio content, we make it probably the easiest to find it. I can't wait to recap this all next weekend with my guy Adam, the Jock Straczynski, on the next episode of the DocNJock Wrestling Podcast.